All right, and 3, 2, 1. Welcome to LibernetLIVE. The Libernet is a project that will marry books, digital books, and the blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, as well as focusing on art and other things related to that. And I'm joined tonight by Eric once again. Hello, Eric. Good to have you back. I love your background like so much, and it's such a cool aesthetic. I really love it. And I forgot to put my glasses on. But
I made this symbol. I made this background myself. It's a symbol that incorporates 9 crowns of fire that we see in the Google logo. There's a alchemy symbol in there. There's a Star of David or a hexagram and a pentagram. And there's the all laughing tongue right there because we're doing a talk show. And the Ankh for living forever.
So cool. And you have a bunch of these tapestries, don't you? Like you have
oh yeah, my
so
tapestry.
many.
Well, what we're doing, I cut up the first one yesterday because now we're reupholstering all my like all the furniture in the house, so that it matches our aesthetic. Like, oh, I'm really excited because it's quite beautiful. I've been working on some of these pieces for a while.
Well, I love that one. And if I buy one of your NFTs, you could like send that my way, and then maybe in the future because eventually I'm going to sort of move, and then I'll have to move the sort of create a studio for the new place. So that would be really cool. And that's if you buy your stuff as an NFT. And I actually am not sure if I included your NFT sort of purchasing link in the description of the last podcast we did together, so I can do it this time. If I made
the noob mistake in the NFT realm is I listed one for about 1.8 million, and the reason for that is because I'm operating on a worldwide scale now. NFTs are international. I want people to pay international prices.
It's something that I have people like from circles of my life that have nothing to do with this world whatsoever that are saying, "Oh, have you heard about the NFT hype?" And I'm like, so because when I'm so involved with like sort of DAOs and Libernet and stuff with what's going on at the moment, I'm so in that world. I don't really know what the sort of the hearsay is on the outside, but there is definitely it's not just it's becoming such a worldwide thing, and I think the question is the question some people have is how long is it going to last, and whether it's something trendy to talk about in the media because everyone's talking about it, or the beginning of something that's going to change how we view social currency and transparent profiles and online profiles on who owns what and who owns this and all the rest of it.
Yeah, is this Pogs or is this chess? What's important is the artists and the creators have a potential to start getting more of a slice of the pie. Everyone's using our content. Everyone's like, I look at like avatars, and everybody, not everybody, but I see quite a few celebrity avatars. Those are people. Those are real people. And those people, they don't get paid off you using their face, but they used to. And they should. That's their face. That's their blood. You capture a snapshot of someone, you get a little piece of their soul. Now that concept is because it's work to be behind a camera. I did a runway modeling and studio modeling and studio photography for a long time. That's a job. I made a living off that, and the internet has to conform to the energy that we put out into the environment. We used to get paid for our energy. Now where does it go?
And with the fact that like private ownership is already it's such a big deal in regards to like how we approach each other anyway. I mean, we could talk maybe about some sort of the meaning of value and how, and maybe it's arbitrariness, but the thing is that it's already such a big aspect of how we communicate and how we see things, and it all gets eaten up. So that's why the NFTs are like such an interesting step, because it takes the idea that ownership that already exists and puts it back in the people that deserve it, really. So that's yeah.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm gonna pause right now for a ruthless plug.
Go.
Label out for grapefruit houseplant. They don't sponsor our program, but I'm extending the invitation for the endorsement. Grapefruit, I'm enjoying your product right now. If you like what you're seeing and you want to be a part of this revolution that we're participating in, please reach out.
So what are they? What do they make exactly? What's
Uh,
special about them?
they make a THC cola. It's more of a sparkling water. And like I don't drink cola. It's sugar free.
Yeah.
I don't eat sugar, so it conforms to my standards. I don't know their practices, but I'm appreciative of their products. So I just want to say thank you, Houseplant.
Sounds good. If I could handle THC, I'd still I'd invest. But weirdly, it is some THC is really something that kind of like was something that I used to really enjoy, and then sort of threw me off a little bit. Threw me, and yeah, absolutely. It's a strange, but there's also there's all sorts of things like, I mean, I find it interesting the sort of this kind of revolution of like small businesses and how, since everyone has a platform and an ability to market without a marketing team, anyone can do anything. I mean, we have Shopify and Etsy now where people can just create merch and just post it up, and it's very easy. And we didn't actually have that. We didn't have that like a relatively small amount of time back, and now that now with all of these things that like people can actually people can create businesses on their phones, and this is a crazy idea. I think this is a crazy idea.
I'm all about businesses. I think like at the end of the day, it does lie in the hands of the business owner. I've tried like really hard as a business owner, and I got my breaks when I stopped trying so much, but I worked for the breaks in order to be able to stop trying. Especially in art, it's so difficult to go from producing one piece of art in your living room to 10 pieces in a studio garage to 1,000 pieces on paper, and then switching that to NFT. What I've found difficult is that I have just oodles of digital art, and then finding the motivation to mint it and finding the coordinated environment of what does that validation mean. It's business is tricky in the first place. Like branding is tricky in the first place. With Etsy and stuff, that's craftsy. There's no barriers to entry. Of course, if someone has inventory, they can sell it. Let's talk about books.
Books. I wanted to mention before we go into books, like just how interesting. What was interesting about before we get to books is how many people on our team and like our Libernet team are also artists. Like people that like we have Easy, who was on Sunday, and he was he's creating his own DAO and all the rest of it. But he also does art, and it seems that everyone, like a lot of people organizing this, who are sort of got a very strong business mind, they're also creatives, and that's again a kind of merging of identities that I don't think was very clear in the consciousness, or like you were either a businessman or you were like a struggling artist, and then now like those two things are kind of merging together, which is really interesting.
I am okay. So I've seen the merging of businessmen and struggling artists, and as a struggling artist, I get to find the ideas. But as a businessman, those ideas, they can't come from the ground. The artist, gets his ideas from the ground, and the businessman, he floats on those ideas that the artist has discovered. The businessman, as the artist, has potential to be success, but the businessman with the artist has the potential for exploitation.
It's a nice way of saying it, man. Yeah.
As far as our team, I hope that Anthony Schaefer watches this, because Anthony Schaefer just took my job as CCO, which I'm thankful, because he has way more experience than me, and he has an incredible resume. I can't imagine what it'd be like to work in some of the think tanks with Pixar and Disney that he's been doing. That's wonderful.
Yes, it's really crazy when Dylan was talking to me about some sudden opportunities that have come our way. It's really quite unbelievable. And sort of the merging of sort of film and studio efforts, and which we know, and the sort of the very simple part of our mission, which is to make books better for creators and readers, which is the idea at its simplest form, and it's such a potent idea that of course, like it's just surprising that that it's happened. It's happening so quickly. It's happening much quicker than I think most of us anticipated.
I feel like every time I submit a piece of art to Libernet, something good happens.
Yeah.
The company evolves at the pace of the documents and the beauty of those documents. And these documents will start a trajectory with us as artists from an iconic manifestation to a symbolic manifestation towards real life in terms of movies. I do believe that now we have, an animator on our team. When I was making the Libernet logo, immediately someone said, can you imagine what it's going to look like when the pages are moving? And I saw it as the opening for an animation or a movie. I wanted to touch, I made a tweet today. If you don't follow me at something ERICK, I'm seeing just a revolution of beautiful, beautiful NFT art. And this will, but I'm not seeing it in contemporary film. I'm not seeing this sort of voice. So what we're doing as Libernet, we're going to start seeing writing styles that we haven't seen before that speak to us like poetry in real ways. So even before we start on the big picture stuff, when we take away that censorship and say, you're going to keep your rights and you're going to be a participant to as far as you want to be a participant in what you create, or at least represent those values. Who knows? Publishers might jump on Libernet and start buying off books and take all the rights. That's between the author and the publisher. I wish there was a way to stop publishers from exploiting people, but
well, this is a problem that I have to take a step back from this after a while, but like because because there's too much going on at the moment, and I've really got to learn to prioritize. But when I'm creating my FCA DAO, which is the DAO for my local town, which is basically where we want to inspire the creative community to be able to get things done. The thing I noticed there was communication. It is the beginning of everything. It's even the beginning of goals, because you can't actually have a goal with someone else unless you communicate to them. In that respect, I think there is we got to be cautious about it. And we got to look for problems and issues we may face. But in terms of the publishers having sort of taking like a piece of the pie out that they don't necessarily deserve, the fact that there's communication happening in the light with how it all works means that it will be far more up to the creators of the book and the consumers of the book over what actually happens, and it's all out in the open, so people can. So that there's no sort of gatekeeping. There's no there's no sort of gatekeeping, and there's no sort of secretive meetings or whatever, because the actual optimal place to communicate about these things would be within the sort of the guidelines of the DAO and the sort of the more sort of central, the more sort of how do I say it, like direct sort of meetings with with sort of meetings with us and stuff like things like that. So I it's there's going to be problems, of course, and people might end up getting some sort of way of manipulating it, as they will do, obviously. But that's this is a fair chance in terms of actually trying to remove a lot of problems that already exist. And
how do you stop deception in humans?
Yeah, right.
You want to just close the church and just stop the deception? Like, we're not going to solve deception with Libernet. We're not going to solve deception with NFTs. This is a human quality.
It's yeah, it's the and that's kind of, that's kind of what it comes down to when we talk about, like, what's maybe you could call essential to human nature with deception and deception and sort of evil and manipulation and psychopathy and all the rest of it. Like, we, you sort of have two options. You have sort of two ways of looking at it, I think. And one way is to sort of see how see these sorts of human nature are socially caused, such as the economics and the material conditions that gave rise to these sorts of behaviors. And then also, if people are just naturally going to be like that anyway, to sort of be advantageous or sort of badly opportunistic in a bad way, then at least you can get rid of some of their power, and by communication and sort of progression and being open with people, and sort of having a sort of idea on, like, ways to move forward in a ways that in a way that, like, just benefits people. So that with those two sort of qualities, you can say, like, right, that this is, these are sorts of problems that we have the tools to overcome, or at least manage, right?
Manage.
Manage is maybe a better word.
Humans, when I was going through, like, a wake up when I finished my book, and it became obvious in our realm that if we can imagine, it exists. If it's within the realm of imagination, it exists at some point in the timeline, whether it's technology, which is either, like, usually future if it's not existing now, but it will exist because we can imagine it. And then if we think about human nature, it exists, and it always exists on a spectrum. Like, as far as deception goes, deception is a byproduct of intelligence, and we're pretty intelligent creatures. Deception is probably the principal byproduct of language.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say, actually.
Language being a detraction from the truth, which is body language.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like, I try and touch over some of these things in the book that I'm going to release in the Libernet, and that will be, like, one of the first books on Libernet, as far as I'm aware. So this is like, but like, that's exciting for me to just announce and be like, this is really cool. I want to put, like, my book into the Libernet because I believe, because I believe in this project. But what you say is so true, man, because, like, and one of the things I sort of argue in the book is, like, language is not like a path, like, language is not a path to truth in the way that we think it is, because
no,
because like, the truth already exists. It's already there. So language, if anything, is a way to sort of misdirect us from the truth, or, like, construct another sort of imaginary reality, because and if everything was understood and everyone knew everything that needed to be known, and everyone was understood the truth, then we wouldn't need to speak to each other, because
we won't in the future. Like,
maybe, man.
I know that's some prophetic visionary shit, like, which might as well just be rubbish. But my partner had a dream, and I do believe in the power of dreams. In the subconscious running the show, where everything goes to hang out together. And I've been proven time and time again that dreams are real. And I've been proven time and time again that they can be rubbish. They muddy the waters, true, but I believe in dreams. So my partner had a dream that everybody, like, because everyone's psychic, but not everybody knows that everyone's psychic. I've shaken someone's hand and they've, like, unbreakabled me. They've totally seen parts of my memory. And I'm kind of thankful for the pandemic now, because I don't have to shake hands anymore. I don't really want to shake anyone's hand after that, because how many other people have that power that aren't telling me?
There's certainly a limit to what we can understand about ourselves, and when we talk about sort of telepathy and sort of yeah, the byproduct. I don't even think it has to be some sort of new. It doesn't have to be some sort of new age thing. I think it can be very sort of intimately psychological, but in a way that's not reductivistic, because we are so intuitive about how we interact with each other, and we necessarily have to be in order to um, socialize and to sort of sort of actually learn how to be with each other. And you can call and you can call that whatever, but like at the end of the day, like intuition is and unconscious unconscious educate learning of your sort of your world is probably more important to how you actually cope in the world than like you're sort of this egoistic like language rational person. Like that this whole, as you say, subconscious show is so much more potent, and you can tell that because like that's how because that's already how animals live. So they already have a way of that might not be the way of saying it, but like animals certainly don't have this egoistic rational lingual cell, and they still learn how to
They
survive.
lack a prefrontal cortex.
Yeah. Yeah. It was something like that. Like, do they lack a prefrontal cortex? Is there actually like a lacking
That,
in them?
from my understanding, that's what differentiates humans from other animals. Is a squirrel will like hide nuts randomly. You know, squirrels only find about like 8 to 13% of their nuts.
Really?
But when we put nuts around, like, you know, we have a tendency to remember to write down where we put it, so that because that's our ability of foresight. Um, that we're defined by our wisdom, sapiens. Homo sapien means wisdom. I think I might have said that on the last time we talked.
I don't think you did. I don't remember. I mean, it was a 2-hour podcast, but I don't
It
remember
is
exactly what you said.
mind-boggling how many people don't know what sapien means as a sapien. Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So I try to say that every time I meet someone, or every time I have a conversation about, you know, blanket human experience, be like, you're a wisdom machine. That's what sapiens is. Sapien. We're the same in our wisdom.
Homo sapien, right?
Words.
Words, man. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. What's interesting is like again, like our ability to use wisdom for evil, you know, and that's a exclusively human trait.
Evil is a human construct.
Mhm.
Is like, if you ask an objective universe what is evil,
Yeah.
the universe will say nothing. If you ask a human what's evil, we're like, oh, I have a whole category of evil things, and I have a whole category of good things.
They're always different depending on the person.
Actually, I want you to go on a little bit about that, because I think I might be full of shit in this area.
So what I meant, and I was reversing back to sort of general ways that evil manifests itself in society that is legal and acceptable in a certain way that like we haven't really come to sort of understand we need to change. Like, and there are many examples, like, tax evasion, all the rest of it. But I think you're on the right.
What's evil about tax evasion? We have a deceptive government.
Well, deceptive, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like tax evasion, maybe sort of like
jails are evil, man. They got to put someone in there. Those things are torture. Like, on the grand scale, apparently we're getting better, according to the better angels of our nature by I think Steven Pinker. Yeah, there is evil. I just read this Hermetic book, and it talks about evil, and I felt it. I felt my own version of it, of evil on my insides. I think I have this thing, like, whenever I start a sentence with "I think," I'm probably wrong. Evil is as old as good.
Yeah.
They're two sides of the same coin. And in a universe based on polarities, hot, cold, good, bad, is it's as natural as water turning into ice and the steam. Same.
Yeah. I mean, when we sort of when we talk about sort of, I don't know, conceptual polarities such as human ones, I mean, I always have to like question what polarities are exactly necessary. And I agree with you that one sort of necessitates the other, but I do wonder when we sort of talk about what I end up calling sort of false dichotomies. Like, I think of a very good example is like sort of, and you might not completely agree, but like with left wingism and right wingism, and I think these are two polarities, and one cannot exist without the other, but they both are polarities because that is the nature of duality in the universe, but they often aren't based on anything real, and they will argue with you. You know, left, and I'm a leftist or whatever, but like that's not really too important. But like the leftists and the right wingers will often argue based on not only a sort of language that they sort of inherited, but a sort of language that they aren't really using to communicate with each other, because you know, like the sort of, that wasn't real. I'm a communist, but communism's caused this damage. Well, that wasn't real communism. Why wasn't it? And we sort of end up getting strangled in definitions that we don't really understand. So when we want to talk about actually bringing about sort of change where we can unite together and sort of find some sort of common problem or common threat or enemy to deal with, it's actually a good idea to sort of stop muddying the waters with left wingism, right wingism, and sort of like, you know, and sort of the conceptual background and apparatus that comes from that, because I don't think it helps.
I have an interesting experience when it comes to left wing and right wing philosophies.
Yeah.
But my younger brother, he has real vision. He doesn't have to paint. He sees auras, he sees visions. He can look into someone's eyes and see what this person is going through at the time. It's quite fascinating. And he was watching a debate between a Democratic and a Republican.
Yeah.
And he said on the Democratic side, he's like, this person is all rainbows and butterflies. And then on the Republican, this person is all fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
So there's this functionality that has to do with full spectrum acceptance of reality that Democrats or liberals or libertarians, people with a wider breadth of human understanding or experience, and without fear, can hope and embrace. On the other side, the Republican thing, this is it's another, because I've been on both sides. I'm, you know, sitting in, like, my house is in the country, is a trailer. I got fucking paintings on the wall. I draw on the walls because I'm a kook. I'm an artist. But at the same time, I'm wearing a $4,000 jacket. So this is my relationship to the right, that has this, they're kind of like relentless progress, but not social, more like things that we can see, like buildings, organizations, because they see that as human progress, not whether or not we understand each other, but whether or not we're able to survive at all.
Yeah.
So their perspective is more that, like, we have to prepare for the worst. While the Republican perspective is everything's going all right, so we just need to increase our understanding of one another.
The Democrat perspective, you mean? Yeah.
A Democrat perspective. But then again, like, that's me growing up in North America and only being exposed to this good cop, bad cop mentality, which is what it is.
Yeah.
Is one's a good cop and one's a bad cop. That's why we got 4 to 8 years Republican, 4 to 8 years Democrat, because you got good cop, good cop, good cop, and then bad cop, bad cop, bad cop. And that's a negotiation strategy. And it's how to manipulate people. It's a parental strategy. You know, you got one parent that plays good, and the other parent that's like, this plays bad.
Yeah, that's a lovely way of saying it, and I completely resonate with that. And And maybe I could like continue your metaphor by saying eventually we got to move out. We have to leave our parental
That's lovely.
guidance behind, and um, not see the world as purely conceptual dichotomies and
that's anarchy within order. The A in
yes, yes,
like which is
exactly.
there's an anarchy symbol in the center of this too. And
Yeah.
I do think that anarchy within order is possible. It's just not as pretty
Mm-hmm.
as the empire.
Yeah. Pretty and what? Yeah, it's the sort of thing that pretty. You know, what do we have to sacrifice to sort of live our best selves, and what sort of desires and aesthetic pleasures do we have to give up in order to like, and I mean, I can think about the dollar looking very pretty. Like the dollar's a very pretty thing to have, and it's got a it's got that aesthetic value that's attributed to like culture and all the rest of it. But there's
I'm sorry.
the dollar has like
The dollar.
the dollar, yeah. It has this aesthetic value, that sort of culturally generated aesthetic value of like, oh, it's the dollar, we live for the dollar or whatever it is. But like,
Oh yeah.
but that's always, there's always that question of like, actually in the same way that like maybe the king would have that similar kind of thing, and like the king and the church were these sorts of two, as well as two like experiential dimensions of sort of meaning in life. There's also like an aesthetic value that comes onto it of like, this is some sort of image, some sort of very, very iconic image to burn into your head to sort of say like, this is what resonates to me valuably. But a lot of the time that can be culturally generated, and a lot of the time we have to find ourselves thinking like, well, how should we actually stay loyal to the king and give them all the power, or should we give the power to ourselves and sort of realize that we are capable of of governing ourselves without sort of icons? Maybe we should call it that, like the empire is an icon.
If there's a spectrum of rich to poor, there will be the richest and there will be the poorest. If there's a spectrum of royalty to not royalty, there will be the most royal and there will be the least royal. We can argue with these constructs that we have some sort of control in them, but we don't. If it exists on a spectrum, a bell curve, and like what's going to exist on one side of the bell curve is going to exist on the other side of the bell curve. As poets and writers, we exist in the middle of the bell curve on every bell curve. Good poets and writers, visionary poets and writers can see all sides and hopefully relate with all sides.
And hopefully beyond.
No matter how difficult it is, it is really difficult to understand what some people have to go through on a daily basis. Especially for like for someone like me who's an able-bodied male, with it's very difficult for me to understand.
I don't even think it's like, and that's the thing with people that struggle in ways that I can't understand, like people of different races. I cannot, and I never will understand, because even if they explain it to me, even if they explain it in detail, even if I get like a view into their experience, I can't experience it. But like, I can't understand because I'm not them. Like, and I don't have their background of not only learning to deal with this, but like sort of implicitly sort of accepting this as your reality, especially if you have suffered it your whole life. Like a disabled person or like an African American, there is literally no, there's no way I can begin to understand, even if I spent a year in their shoes, because I don't know how I don't know their childhood experiences, and I don't know how their parents. See what I mean? It's which is what is very interesting when you sort of think about sort of like, oh, I understand, but let's move on. It's like, no, actually, you can't make that jump so quickly.
As a able-bodied person, my younger brother is a disabled African American. I have to, like, I went through most of my life in Black denial, which is a real thing because I went through it. Where it's just easier to pretend I'm white and just be like, I'm light skinned, like, and I tell people that I'm Black. They're like, no, you're not. I'm like, okay, I can get away with this.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I use it a little to my advantage, because most African Americans won't be in some of the positions that I've been in just because they can't spy.
That's a very sad reality.
It's an incredibly sad reality. When I learned the truth of it, and I learned it in the midst of while working in suits, with suits. Like one of my clients, I wonder if I can call out his name right now. Can I call out just this lawyer in Saskatoon named Tim Turple, who bought like $5,000 worth of suits from me, showed me his Nazi art collection, and asked me to make an SS uniform for him. This still exists.
I think if he's a Nazi, I don't have any problem with you. I don't have any problem with you calling this person that. I don't know what it means, but like I don't know. Yeah, this is. I mean, like, yeah.
I look at like artists like Bruno Mars, and if I'm gonna get to call people are gonna eventually gonna call me out on shit, and I'm gonna be equally as, you know, upset, I'd imagine. But I was looking at this cover by Bruno Mars. It's called Unorthodox Jukebox, and it's in red, black, and white, which is the traditional Third Reich colors. And it says unorthodox on it. Now, I don't know if that's like there's a Operation Vanilla Gorilla, which is some white supremacy operation. And so like, there's some African Americans in our culture, and I was one of them up to a point, that are so brainwashed by the white agenda. It makes it very difficult to be human.
It happens in ways that like you can't even
It's a war. It's a psychological war.
It is. I mean, like it's an experiential war. When you're sort of when you're put in a world where, like, you know, I don't know, white is essentially the default. Like you're going to be put in a position where, like, you know, there's going to, even if you can't think about it, because, you know, it doesn't matter if you can't think about it.
In English, white is the default.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I read a book. I wish I could remember, about an African woman who came from Nigeria, and she didn't know that she was black until she came here. And it's like, I
mean, exactly. Of course, I'm referring to West. Of course, I'm referring to Western civilization, and yeah, and that's a sort of underlying thing that we actually that again, like I can't experience because
I hope you never have to.
Well,
I hope that what I've experienced in terms of racism doesn't. I hope that there's a way that we can work it out of our institutions. It's not looking like it, but
it's well, I mean, I think it's coming more to the forefront of knowledge that systemic racism is real, and, you know, and it's not really something we can sort of like.
How long before we forget it's real?
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's
because I saw someone talking about this on Instagram the other day. Like, always remember September 11th, but, like, you know, the 9,140 days that people were slaves. We can forget about that pretty easily. The redlining of districts so that people that are poor stay poor.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we're bringing
the police, the war on drugs, the Republican Party, because it has in its title Republic. And I don't think that inclusiveness of other people, whether they were imported from other republics, is part of a Republican identity or principle. Although I've heard a lot of Republicans say it. Well, I'm not racist.
Well, I mean, it's a I think it's a non-statement, because it doesn't, like, again, when we talk about language, we actually have to know what we mean. And when you say I'm not racist, like, you don't actually, it doesn't point to anything in the world, and that's what, and language should either be artistically expressive in the way that it generates imagination, or it has to point to something. And, like, if it doesn't point to something, then you're not communicating. Like, if you say I'm not racist, it doesn't. You're not actually pointing to something to say this is what I mean. It's a social game of it's a social game that generates that sort of anticipate certain responses from other people, and that's not actually communicating. That is
You're right. You're absolutely right.
it's flag posting. Yeah.
When someone's like a Republican says, "I'm not racist," it's an instigative comment.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's designed to elicit a reaction rather than state a fact.
yes.
And that's what we when we're talking about deception in candor of our elocution, of our communication in general. Like they've got it down pat, the Republicans especially, because in the war room, the boardroom, I've noticed it's quite anthropological. They don't fight with swords anymore, they fight with pens. And I guess that's what we do as artists too,
without the in a certain, in one way maybe, but I think there's much more benevolence going on with the artist, because we are merely trying to put I mean, as far as I'm concerned, art is merely trying to put a subjective mirror onto the world. Maybe, you know,
we have to choose a side. There's no way around it.
In some ways, art can be
we're the advertisers for philosophies.
Yeah, and that's true, and you can't be and the fact that you're going to invoke a reaction out of people shows that you have you have a particular experience that you want to show people, and that's not going to be impartial, because no experience is impartial. But but again, when we sort of talk about how art has sort of been swooped up by the centralized market, art becomes very synonymous with the culture industry and what the culture wants to advertise, and we all get swept up in that world, and that's a real problem. Like when we, you know, because art, the one of the purposes of art should be to be outside of the culture or the mainstream culture and shock it into.
That's called counterculture art. That's we're incorporated with Libernet. We're part of the counterculture. We're also underground because we're in Web3, which is the third ring of hell, like of going outside of like the hoi polloi where everyone goes. Like we're going deeper. We're gonna try to solve some of these problems.
Yeah, like mainly books. This is the thing.
I want you to continue a little bit with that thought.
Yeah, with the idea of the culture industry, or with the idea of Libernet, which one would you be more interested in hearing?
The culture industry. Okay, so
when we
let you continue.
No, go on. Yeah,
I'm gonna let you continue, but I watched this. I'm a subscriber to Audible, and do you know that Matthew McConaughey has had a book on the top seller list?
Yeah, what's it called? It's called like Green Springs or something. I forget what it's called.
Green Lights or
Green
something.
Lights.
No one gives a shit. Matthew McConaughey, you're an actor. You haven't done anything but appeared in pictures, man. Like seriously, that's where our culture's agenda is like, who have we seen talk more and pretend more? Like and he's a good motivational
he is, speaker. And that is something I will what's the word? I will I will challenge you on, because I think he is a good motivator, and I think there is certainly, I'm sure he certainly has interesting life lessons to say. However, the fact that he is an actor, and that's been his entire career. I think since he was like 17, that was when he began. Now he's 51 or what. I forget
he acted out a whole bunch of other people's voices.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the front man. He was the face of it. Yeah. And he probably had someone else write his book. I'm not sure about this, but Matthew McConaughey, if you're watching this, go ahead and prove me wrong, buddy.
That's pretty good. I mean, he's from Texas as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I sometimes, especially after drinking some houseplant grapefruit,
For sure.
I might go into my Texas drawl just a little bit. I'll let it go.
I think I want to actually continue with your thoughts because I think that I think that um, even though Matthew McConaughey may have some life lessons, it's very interesting to see where our culture is when we actually want to buy an actor who's talk about his life and not and especially not the sort of the people that like have, I don't know, like maybe I shouldn't make a judgment on importance or significance of what people have to say, but when we talk about an actor who is a pretender, and that's what his job is, and we want to hear about how the pretender pretends, it's a very interesting thing to sort of to voyeur and sort of get excited about, as opposed to sort of um, something far less saturated and superficial. And I'm not calling Matthew McConaughey superficial. I'm just saying that.
Oh, come on, he's a total narcissist.
I'm not saying I don't want to. I don't want to make. I don't want to make the judgment that he's. I don't know him too
Oh,
well.
come on, dude, we're librarians. We're the counter narcissists. Or no, that's a whole different category. We're actually the like echoists. Right now we're like stepping out of our comfort zone to put our faces on screens where most of the times we're writing things.
Oh yeah.
Channeling from human consciousness. But I'll tell you this about motivational speakers: they're going to give you a whole lot of advice, and like very little of it is going to be practical. I've noticed that about, like, they're regurgitating books that they've already read. I read, like, I was like, okay, what's Tony Robbins' secret? So I read like 250 motivational books and like psychological books, and they say basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you start to be like, oh, there's like 5 points that are like prevalent across this packaged approach.
Yeah. And it's almost horoscopic in a way, but
you have value, you have worth, you are a good person. No, you're not a good person. You're a human being. You're an alpha predator.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking over the planet. 2/3 of the population of other animals have died in the last 60 years because you're a horrible person. That's why you're doing well.
I mean, when you put it like that, I think it's good to really just thaw out ways to actually apply self-help in actual life, and not to just go down to the same sort of generic tropes and superficial same, such as you are, when you if you were to be able to boil it down to things like you are a good person, there's a certain element of like, you have to find some actual real and practical part of you that actually that's dedicated to not only just sort of moving sort of finding ways to, I don't know, like move forward in a certain in a way that's been very generalized and sort of manufactured for you, but also like recognize your own authenticity and ability, that you aren't going to have this, like this, these books aren't going to give you this, they aren't going to give you nothing's going to give you this sort of fast track to wellness and appreciation of life, but yourself you
have to experience it.
You have to do it yourself, and you're going to do it in the ways that are idiosyncratic, in ways that you can't learn from other, like you can get tips from even psychotherapists and sort of psychologists, but especially with motivational speakers, it's going to be a big it's going to be a big problem when we start giving our energy, or giving our authority, delegating our authority to these people, as opposed to keeping it ourselves and saying, you know what, I'm going to learn because I know my life better than anyone else.
Some people do, though. Like, there's some people with like vision. Like, I've had intuitions of at the very end of my life, me telling me something, and that's, I have to go with that. There's some people that can't, that just have no idea. They don't understand, and they are blind, and they probably do need these motivational speakers because they're too fucking dumb to read a book.
Well, maybe
And
perhaps it's a little
like
harsh, but
I'm
yeah.
that's pretty harsh. But you know what? If someone picked up a book, a classic literature,
Mm,
and applied those philosophies to their life, I think they would have a lot more meaning than would some guy in a suit on stage being like, look at me, I'm so awesome because I'm happy on a stage. And that's all it takes is acting to be that person on a stage, to appear happy. We don't know what those people do when they go home, if they practice what they preach.
This is the whole thing about facade and why we appeal to actors and people that make a living out of not being real. And this is the problem.
Perception.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
the church too.
Yeah.
There's a new movement about these there's aliens on the planet, and they've taken over our etheric bodies, and they have names like Arcturians and reptiles. There's reptile people. No, and I can solve this, but you have to donate now. I can help you battle the aura people, but you got to donate now.
Yeah.
It's freaky. It's freaky because I've fallen in the path of believing in some of these.
It's a great sleight of hand when you actually when you.
It is a sleight of hand. That's a good.
It's a sleight of hand because you know it's sort of like, you know, authenticity in yourself and what you believe in and what you think is valuable, and then someone says, "Oh, authenticity, yeah, I know authenticity," you know, and then as soon as you name it, they then have the power, and you have to buy their book, and you have to get on their course and program and sell your life to them, and
you know what's authentic? I was worried about my stomach, so I had to count how many times I farted one day.
Yeah.
That's authentic.
Yeah.
People talk about authentic leadership. Nobody's authentic in our society. Come on. We all show up naked to work if we're authentic. We're as fake as the clothes that we wear. We're as fake as the plastic in our glasses. Like, authenticity. I think I'm authentic with my wife when I can be. I'm authentic with myself when I can be. But we're very capable of self-deception. Incredibly.
We are again, we are the creatures that are so good at that. That's what, you know, that and we are the creatures. We are maybe the only creatures that are good at that, to the extent that we are. So like, as a, you know,
if you have a kink and that kink is illegal, let's take homosexuality back to, I don't know, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Or any other kink that's illegal right now. How far do you have to go to deceive yourself that you don't have that kink?
Yeah.
I watched Aziz Ansari's show, which I thought was profound. And there was a guy masturbating on the subway. That's his thing. At the end of the episode, he's like, "Why do you do it, man?" He's like, "That's my thing. You got a thing. You get to do your thing." And so when we talk about authenticity is counter legal. Authenticity is counter, is the opposite of what's written in the social contract.
Yeah.
So no one's authentic. We're all trying to get money.
Even if you were to find an authentic behavior, such as I don't know, be creative. As soon as you actually, as soon as you put that, you legislate it, and as soon as you encourage it in your schools, and you know, in a certain sort of hierarchical framework, it stops being what it should be. And when you're creative, it stops being actual authentic creativity. That's why. And this is what I mean when we just go back to what I mean when you actually have an art, have this whole sort of art system, or like this, you know, this whole art generation, and then very slowly this sort of bottom layer sort of seeps in, almost like, you know, water to oil, and in the end it sort of brings this whole thing up, and then all of this whole art sort of, you know, just this dimension of human beings becomes predicated on this growing system, like such as if you're to be a writer and to write, to actually write and be able to write, just write, to pay rent and bills, whatever. Let's say that's your mission in life. That I have to write and I have to eat, and that's it.
And
And
you're not a writer, you're a content provider, you're probably a hack.
Well, exactly, because of the system, it immediately becomes, sort of, it becomes, well, to be a writer, you have to be on Amazon books, and then it becomes that, and that's fine. I'm not against people who do it, of course not. But we have to recognize this sort of slow buildup of this understructure that generates all of this, that becomes the only way people can do things. With Libernet hopes to change that absolutely. When if you're a writer, if you write anything and you want to use it to help you eat as a human being, immediately Amazon steps in and it's like, well, actually Amazon predicates all of that now. And if you want to be an artist, these certain galleries predicate all of it. And it's becoming more of a glaring issue with the internet and with the sort of generation of that, and which is why the blockchain technology is something I really want to cling on to and really just support and work for.
If you want to be an artist, you got to have. If you want to be a writer, like, okay, I think it's different for writers, because when writers create something, you are reliant on the printing press. So since the printing press, that created the profession of being a writer. As an artist, we've been trading with kings for a long time. So the printing press, when I found out that the printing press is a good crutch, I think I lost a little bit of my soul. Like, it's the one of ones that make life move forward. And it's because each unit of art has a person that it's supposed to go to. Like that's how the timeline works with art. The art doesn't understand time. It's just like, you created me with these exact specifications to go to this person to bring you this information. So creating our own currency, our own interactive, transactional interactions is what it comes down to. Being a writer, I had to I don't think I had to move on to something else. I had to diversify in order to write something, and then that helped me write comics.
Yeah. And you enjoy writing comics?
When I can. Oh, I love it. It's so difficult. It's such a challenge. And also it's closer to reality in terms of manifestation, because it has the post-iconic element of symbolism, where it's not implied symbolism in icons, where it's like, I've seen so many weird shit happen in my art as a result of just like, if I wanted to see more money, I'd just paint more money on a picture. So I'd be seeing it before I experienced it. I found incredibly efficient ways to do that. As a writer, I designed whole episodes of my life. But it wasn't so specific and immediate. The immediacy in being an artist is unbelievable.
Takes a second.
Literally blew my mind a couple times. Yeah,
it takes a second to be an artist. I oh bloody hell, I had something to say. When we talk, and when we talk about like, being an artist and being a writer, and just generally that whole system that propagates like the process of actually being able to do that now, it becomes so muddy, and it becomes so governed by middlemen. That's not exactly what I wanted to say, but I had something when you were talking about art has been doing it for a long time, and that's the part, that's it, man. Like, art seems to be like, but not even just like physical, like visual art, but also like, dancing and music and spiritual practices. I mean, you couldn't, under some useful term, put that under art, and there's no actual sort of officialization that says that's what I remember how to say now. There's no sort of officialization with that this is how it's supposed to be done. But when you talk about when you talk about like because I had a friend that wanted to stop these processes by working completely outside the system. And when you sort of advocate working outside the system, and what he means are very different things.
No, what did he mean?
He meant, for example, we were going to create a sort of a commune, right? And we were going to create a commune so far away, whatever. And we're going to create, get volunteers to, sort of create, build, grow food, build, residents, settlements or whatever. And we wanted to do that and sort of just, buy land and just like, work, have a way of sort of existing outside of society. But he went to the point where he didn't even want to name it, because that would be playing into these sorts of lingualizations of, oh, then someone owns it, blah, blah, blah. And this is the point where, like, he wanted to sort of make things happen, but he was so outside of the system that he couldn't even start. So when we think about, like, my advocation, which is what this point is trying to make, is that if you want to change the system, I don't think you have to completely generate your own rule book or work completely outside the system. Like with DAOs, they initially, with decentralized autonomous organizations, they initially start out as centralized organizations with a structure and a hierarchy. And of course, that's how you have to begin, because this is where we are now, and we have to move away from it slowly. In the same way that Bitcoin is being used, is sort of being traded with the US dollar. And, my optimism is that one day the US dollar will be valued in how much Bitcoin there is, So this is
everything that's sold is being traded with the US dollar.
Everything, man, everything. And that's
the most powerful. It's one of the most powerful currencies on the planet.
It probably is the most powerful currency on the planet, like by a significant amount. But
doesn't GBP trade for like a pound is like $1.50 and a euro is like a pound is like $2.
1 pound is 72 cents in US dollars.
What? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And euros, I think 1 pound is. Oh, sorry, did I say that right? Sorry, $1 is 72 pennies. That's what I meant to say. And then the euro is even less. The euro is even more valuable than the pound and the dollar. So this is an interesting thing when we
how our market has evolved since we started trading.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? And
for coupons, for fucking coupons, man.
Representations, and with the gold standard as well. When you think about Nixon abolishing the gold standard in, I believe, the 60s, and don't quote me on that, money became fiat. It became let it be done, or like forced. You owe this as debt to the Federal Reserve, and what constitutes what you owe doesn't mean anything at all. So you owe something. So what is it? You owe a part of it.
It means something. It's credit.
Yeah.
We work hard for credit, and credit's one of those intangible things. And it's like hard to wrap your head around credit because it's an intangible. Just like like Coca-Cola's name is an intangible, but it's a very valuable name. So when we talk about credit instead of gold, is because we're not trading gold anymore. We're trading for trust. Credit is trust. So like these moves, they're really smart. And at the end of the day, like we're humans, we're supposed to be smart.
Well, I completely agree, and I don't think money has to represent anything physical. I'm talking about like when the founding, I don't know who it was. Again, I need to get myself up on this, but like when the founding fathers or whatever, like whoever they were, like created the sort of the Federal Reserve banking system, they created it where the US dollar was not something that's simply valuable. It was an IOU, and they actually set it up to say, okay, eventually we'll work out a system where they can actually put their dollars in and get something valuable, so everything's solved. But they never actually solved the problem. So we have hundreds of years of like, we have that problem to work out that no one knows about anymore. We'll get there eventually. and now we're in a place where like people, where the USA, as far as I know, and is sort of toying with third world countries to buy barrels of oil, and every time they buy a barrel of oil with a US dollar that they don't actually want to use, the dollar goes up artificially. And now we're in this position where the money, as you say, it not only is intangible, but it doesn't mean anything for anyone. And this value of what the US dollar doesn't even mean anything on a social basis, because the value is created artificially in a way that is not based on like an intrinsic value, such as, oh, the dollar's worth a sandwich for me, so that's why it's valuable to me, because it's bigger than that, I think.
It's achieved its goal of being a hypnotic unit of currency. It's hypnotic art. Like that's all currency is like really pretty art. I've experienced this as an artist, because when I'm selling an oil piece, like I really have to talk to someone. I'm like, this is the reason this piece is valuable, is because my career, and because of I've sold pieces for this much and I'm endorsed by these people. And then when I have like these little pieces of these little pieces wrapped in plastic, or little plastic art pieces, like people just, they look at it and they're like, that's money.
Yeah.
It's deception at its finest. Because what does it mean really? The value of paper, or the value of ideas, or whatever is pretty gets something else that's pretty.
Iconic, maybe.
Law of attraction.
It goes beyond. I mean, it's a very different pretty to nature. It's like with nature, it's disinterested.
Plastic pretty.
You are just taken in by nature, and you are one. It's a very 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 I'm not sure the word, because there isn't really a word for it, because the value of nature is nameless in some ways, and then the value of icons is hypnotic. You're right, and it's
social versus real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
nature.
Yeah.
Of course, nature fits in. Social fits into the realm of nature.
Yeah.
I think what you're referring to when you talk about nature is like trees and
it's clouds and the sun and the moon and animals and stuff, and if we want to sort of find a balance between the sort of the machine of the human and the and the animal, we have to again sort of question dichotomies and polarities and icons, and find ways to find our own authentic values and return to something that we can call real for ourselves, real for us, I think.
I wonder if there's any returning, if there's any going back. We want to be robots. We love robots. We love machines. That's why we spend so much time with machines. And we want to mimic their processes, and we want their processes to be better than ours. It's like having a kid, but little plastic kids.
Yeah, and this is the future that we're all not only witnessing happen, but are sort of having an acting role in, and that's just it can be such an overwhelming thought, and at the same time, it's such a liberating and free thought to know that you have any say in it whatsoever. Eric, we've been on for over an hour. It's been lovely chatting with you again. Love the background. I'm looking forward to the next background. And
they're gonna get better with each.
They will. I'm sure. I'm pretty damn sure they will. I don't know how you're gonna top this though. This is great.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Love it. Love the black and white. Love the glasses. I love that we're both wearing sunglasses this episode. Do you have anything you want to plug audibly, like to our audience now, that's going on for you, and if NFTs that you have working on, anything that you are currently working on?
Well, I want to encourage my audience to reach out to me directly, because that's art for me. I've had residencies, and I consider the internet now my residency, and everybody a part of it. So if someone wants to, and my connection is dying, so I might have to get these plugs in quick. If anyone wants to reach out to me on that front, I'm always promoting Happy Man, which is available for $5 on my website, erickstow.com. It's 116 pages. It starts off super rough and sketchy, and it gets incredibly beautiful towards the end. Right? And that's kind of like the whole, the whole motif of the story is getting better as an artist and getting these upgrades and stuff.
Brilliant. I'm gonna look on your website and see if there's anything I can sort of have a look at, and I'll just have a look at the very least, and see if there's anything that looks amazing, and there definitely will be. Eric, it's been brilliant. And thanks to our audience for watching. Leave a comment telling us what you'd like to see more of and what you liked in this episode. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to follow us on Twitter. That is in the description as well. And you have a great weekend, everyone. And here's to that. Nice, Eric. Thanks very much. And we'll see everyone next time. Take it easy.
See y'all.